Africa's potent stories. On today's broadcast, we begin in Uganda, where a new report unveils deep military control across all sectors. In South Africa, Trump's new tariffs could slash 100,000 jobs. Kenya is under cyber siege, with AI-enabled threats surging 201%. In Eswatini, the U.S. controversially lands deportees from third world countries. France faces accusations of neocolonial overreach from Equatorial Guinea at the ICJ, and Zimbabwe prepares to construct a $270 million lithium plant, plus the latest AGM weather, and of course the South Africa report with Arrie Hougaard. Watch us on DSTV 285, GOTV 25, NTV Africa on YouTube, and oneup2.com. Keeping in mind, on OneUp2, if you select Echo, you have access to all our episodes in your time, on your terms. My name is Ashwin Berry. This is Africa Good Morning. Top stories shortly.
Running a business isn't just about hitting the big milestones, it's also about handling the day-to-day. From equipping your office, to closing deals over lunch, to managing your team's expenses while they're on the go. Now, with the FNB Business Credit Card, you can handle everyday expenses with ease. Enjoy up to 44 days of interest-free credit, unlimited swipes, and real-time expense tracking, so you're always in control. Apply for an FNB Business Credit Card. Contact us today to get started. FNB, how can we help you?
Getting into our top stories on Africa Good Morning. A damning new report titled Guns Everywhere, the Military and Transition Politics in Uganda reveals the UPDF's entrenchment in all spheres of Ugandan life, from politics to policing to religion and economy. The study, authored by Godber Tumushabe and Andrew Karamagi, portrays a regime where civilian oversight has all but collapsed. It scrutinizes the evolution of Special Forces Command into a strategic army within an army, and places a spotlight on General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, whose ascension echoes dynastic politics, being the son of President Yoweri Museveni. With active personnel set to increase by 11,500 this year, Uganda's military budget hit $0.92 billion in 2022. The report accuses the government of codifying repression, citing May's controversial law permitting military trials for civilians, despite a recent Supreme Court ruling against it. The authors label this governance model a warrior mad king scenario, with Museveni and son at the helm of an authoritarian project. The military's partisan violence, manipulation of elections, and infiltration of civic spaces mirrors regimes in Gabon and Togo. Uganda's men and women in uniform deserve better, concludes the report, calling for urgent demilitarization reforms. President Duma Boko of Botswana toured Katse Dam and the Mahaleng River in Lesotho, earmarked for a dam to supply Botswana with 150 million cubic meters of water annually. The Lesotho-Botswana Water Transfer Project underscores a united push for sustainable development and regional cooperation. By tapping into Lesotho's rich water resources, the initiative secures Botswana's long-term water needs while deepening historic ties. Let's have a look as President Duma Boko speaks at the dam.
3 countries are brought together for this project: Lesotho, Botswana, and South Africa. This is a project that involves the delivery of water to all the 3 countries, the generation of power, the growth of the economies of each of these countries, because they will be able to generate the much needed energy. They will also be able to establish other industries. They will establish agricultural projects and nodes along the pipeline, and ensure not just water safety for all the 3 countries involved, but also energy and food security. So this project is of immense importance and prominence in the relationship of these three countries. It is important for each one of them to take the project with the due seriousness. Botswana stands to benefit 158 million cubic meters of water per year, delivered in the southern part of the country, serving therefore a huge catchment area. South Africa will get 68 million cubic meters of water from this project. And along the pipeline, 5 megawatts of power will be generated.
Kenya has recorded a 201.7% spike in cyber attacks, with 2.5 billion threats logged in the first quarter of 2025. The Communications Authority of Kenya attributes the surge to increasingly sophisticated attacks powered by AI tools. The number of system vulnerabilities more than tripled, jumping 228.3% to 2.47 billion, while web application threats hit 5.08 million. While traditional attack forms like DDoS and malware declined, the new wave of AI-enabled cybercrime is faster and harder to detect. The World Economic Forum notes that today's cyber attacks take less than 4 days to execute, compared to just 60 days 6 years ago. Malicious actors are leveraging generative AI tools like ChatGPT to craft advanced malware, making it easier for amateur hackers to launch powerful attacks. Despite issuing 13.2 million advisories, a 14.2% decrease from the previous quarter, Kenya remains deeply vulnerable across sectors like finance and telecoms. Now, the report calls for stronger cybersecurity infrastructure to match the pace of evolving threats, warning that the proliferation of smart devices across households only expands the terrain for digital exploitation. In a high-profile move following a U.S. Supreme Court ruling, the United States has deported a group of violent foreign criminals to Eswatini. The deportees, convicted of serious offenses such as child rape and murder, originated from countries including Vietnam, Cuba, Laos, Jamaica, and Yemen. According to Homeland Security, the receiving country was selected due to refusals by individuals' home nations to accept them back. Under new ICE policy guidelines, deportations to third countries can now happen with as little as 6 hours' notice in exigent circumstances. The memo issued by Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons says the removals are allowed if the receiving nations pledge not to persecute or torture the deportees. Human rights advocates have expressed concern about the speed and secrecy of these processes, warning of violations in due process. Now, the deportations mark a resurgence in Trump-era immigration policies focused on expedited removals and enhanced border security. Meanwhile, Eswatini becomes a reluctant participant in a global strategy critics view as outsourcing punitive migration policies to under-resourced nations. And Equatorial Guinea has taken France to the International Court of Justice over the seizure of assets belonging to Vice President Teodoro Obiang Nguema. The confiscated assets include a €100 million Paris mansion featuring a private cinema and gold-plated fittings. France contends the property was acquired through corruption and is moving toward auctioning it under laws targeting illicit wealth. However, Equatorial Guinea claims the mansion was part of its diplomatic mission and accuses France of violating the Vienna Convention and its sovereignty. Vice President Obiang, already fined €30 million and handed a suspended sentence in 2017, was also sanctioned by the UK for alleged bribery and abuse of office. Equatorial Guinea's ambassador to France denounced the seizures as paternalistic and neocolonial, arguing Paris has no right to decide how funds from asset sales should be used. while France maintains the proceedings are legally justified and says no immediate sale is planned, the legal and diplomatic battle continues at the ICJ, with Equatorial Guinea demanding immediate access to the disputed property. Those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. Shortly, we'll be talking to Arrie Hougaard as he delivers the South Africa report. But prior to that, we're going to have a look at the weather. All right, it's time for me to talk to Arrie Hougaard as he delivers the South Africa report. Good morning, Arrie. How are you?
Yes, very good morning, Ashwin. Nice to talk to you. Hi, everyone. Morning.
Nice to talk to you too, Arrie. So, in your current affairs, you've got some potent stories here, Arrie. The South African police services seem to have lost the trust of the majority of South African citizens as the Minister of Police has been placed on special leave. Fly Safair pilots look set to strike if salary negotiations don't go away. And the Reserve Bank predicts that as many as 100,000 South Africans might lose their jobs due to the proposed Trump tariff increase.
Yes, Ashwin, a little bit turbulent times at the moment. Going to your first, the story you mentioned there, the police services. As you mentioned there, it is the news currently in South Africa is that the Minister of Police, Senzo Ntunu, he was placed on special leave. There's been allegations coming that there's corruption that involves him and senior police officers. So that's going to be investigated. Also, the trust that you also mentioned that's been lost, that comes not just from hearsay, that's the Human Science Research Council that did the investigation over time. And they came out and said that just 22% of South Africans actually trust the police. So that is a very low percentage. You don't need that in a country, any country in the world, and that's at the moment what's going on. Then to further put fuel on the fire, the minister in the presidency yesterday, Mrs. Nsaveni, she made an announcement and just report back on general safety in South Africa. And she said that there's actually a risk. She mentioned specifically a risk of a coup d'etat. A coup d'etat is when you take over a country forcefully. So I'm not sure if that is really that big a threat at the moment, but it's big enough of a threat that it's been mentioned. So that is crazy to hear. The reason why it is a threat, and it's maybe implicating Minister Senzo Ntunu as the that has been put on leave, but also it's been implicated that the MK party and that part of South Africa was behind the uprising in 2021. So obviously, if you want to do a coup d'etat, you need government, you need force, you need either the army or the police behind you. So I don't think we're there at the moment, but it is actually quite concerning to wake up and see those reports being mentioned even. But coup d'etats have happened in South Africa just briefly. It's been happening mostly in the 60s, Nigeria, Ghana, Mali. Actually in Mali, as recent as 2021, there was a coup d'etat. All over the world, Brazil, Thailand, all those countries have seen that. So it's not something that's uncommon, but it's probably unlikely, but it's been mentioned in government circles. So we'll see that. Hopefully the investigation into this will go peacefully. And that we will have a police service that is operating 100% and can earn the trust of the country. So that is all very current at the moment. Also related to Fly Sat Air, that's South Africa's largest domestic airline. So there's one of their planes. There's been 3 months of salary negotiations, and most of the pilots, 3/4 of them, they're represented by Solidarity Trade Union. It's about 220 pilots that say that they will go on strike if the salary negotiations do not end in the right way. The pilots ask for 10.5% increase and also for CPI Consumer Price Index plus 4% for the next 2 years. But it is a return from FlySafe Air say that they can only offer 5.7%. So at the moment, actually, there's some talk that the cabin crew will also go on strike, but actually they probably need to be aligned by the pilots because they can't work if the pilots don't fly. So it is important that they probably taken into consideration as well. But that is actually quite a challenge at the moment. So hopefully that will be resolved. Lots of commuters, lots of people flying with that airline daily in South Africa. And then also just on current news to close that, maybe the Reserve Bank Governor, Mr. Lesotho Kganyago, he said that according to their statistics, it shows that the proposed 30% tariff increases from the United States will come to 100,000 job losses that's threatened, as confirmed there by that report. And that's mainly linked to agriculture and automotive. And actually quite recent as the last few months, he said that SA car exports, that slumped 80% in the wake of the tariff increases. So it's not good news, especially in the citrus, like we talked about last week, in Citrusdal. 7 million cartons being exported to the USA from Citrusdal, close in the Western Province. So there's definitely farmers and workers' jobs under threat. So that is current news at the moment, Ashwin.
All right, it's time for us to get into your sport updates, Arrie. The national women's football team, Banyana, advanced to the quarterfinals of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations, also known as WAFCON. And Siya Kolisi returns as captain for the Springboks on Saturday versus Georgia.
Yes, sport keeps us going on weekends. It motivates us. I know Namibia also a big rugby game coming up against Zimbabwe this coming weekend to try and qualify for the World Cup rugby in Australia. So all the best there for the rugby team, Jacques Burger and his team. Yes, that's Ivan Etzebeth. He's going to be playing in the game in Mbombela. That is on Saturday. Nice to see Siya Kolisi back. He's the inspirational captain for South Africa. He's been injured the last 2 games. Important to have him back leading up to very big games against Australia and New Zealand coming up in August and September. So always nice to play in Gqeberha, and it's an inspirational captain and some strong players there. And on the soccer field, Banyana always makes South Africa proud. They've actually won their last 14 games in that competition, African Cup of Nations, or unbeaten actually. They had a few draws. And so a big game coming up against Senegal over the weekend. That's quarterfinals. And hoping to defend their title. So they're playing good football, and inspirational coach there, Desiree Ellis, doing a great job there with that soccer team. So hopefully they can win on the weekend and progress further into that competition and win that tournament. So that's the sport news at the moment.
Thank you very much for giving us the sport updates. Now, the Kruger National Park is South Africa's biggest national park and was established in 1891. I hope I pronounced it properly because I grew up calling it the Kruger National Park.
Yes, it's. I also call it the Kruger National Park. Yes, it's South Africa's biggest national park. I think many South Africans have been there or at least tried to get there. That's what it looks like. It's so amazing. It relates a little bit to the Etosha, but it's its own unique way. So there's lots of animals. All the big five are obviously there. That's accommodation, but it looks like elephants just around you. So the history goes back to 1891 when it was commissioned to be a national park. Officially, it was only from 1926 when it was called the Kruger National Park. 300 farms that was included in that process. So it's a massive piece of land, 360 kilometers from north to south and 65 kilometers from east to west. So it's a big piece of ground. The big five you can see there. There's also the wild dogs. There's just 400 of them left. They protected in that area as well. And 1.6 million South African or visitors go there daily. It's day visitors, and 380,000 people overnight stay in that Kruger National Park annually. So it's a big one. Lots of animals there. Numbers are massive. 15,000 impalas if you go into numbers. 15,000 of them. But there's also 2,000 lions. So it probably keeps the balance there as well in terms of that. So if you go to and there's leopards as well, and all the big five. So that's one of South Africa's pride. It's a Kruger National Park, and I mentioned that because the rugby is being played in Mbombela. So if in Mbombela you watch the rugby on Saturday when Siya Kolisi leads the team, you can just go across a few kilometers, enter from the southern gate there of the Kruger National Park. So that's all entertainment in South Africa at the moment. That's our entertainment news.
All right, Arrie, thank you very much for delivering the South Africa report. I'm going to go straight into our economic news story just before we have a look at the indicators. Zimbabwe to begin construction of $270 million lithium plant. Zimbabwe's state-owned Kuvimba Mining House plans to begin construction of a $270 million lithium concentrator at the Sandawana mine before year's end. The facility, developed in partnership with two unnamed Chinese metals firms, will produce 600,000 metric tons annually. The deal includes a 5-year build, operate, transfer agreement, after which ownership reverts to Kuvimba. The timing is strategic. Company CEO Trevor Bernard predicts lithium prices, which have plunged 90% due to oversupply, will rebound by 2027, the same year the plant is set for commissioning in Zimbabwe. Let's have a look at the economic indicators. Listen, Kaya, we made it. It's fine. We made it to the end of the show. That's what matters. Please use one of the other Rory songs. Then tomorrow we'll record a new one. Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning on NTV Africa. That's on YouTube, DSTV 285, GOTV 25, and of course, oneup2.com. Keeping in mind, on oneup2.com, if you click the echo icon, you'll have access to all of our episodes in your time, on your terms. From me, Ashwin Bedi, and the Africa Good Morning team, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Swera Jokanaka.